A body hanged 20 years ago appeared in my dream. The killer, holding a kitchen knife still dripping with blood, smirked with a ferocious smile.
Officer, what happens when you catch the real killer?
What happens when they're in prison?
The good show is just beginning. The day they get out of prison is the day you must die.
I woke up with a start, my whole body drenched in cold sweat. I suddenly remembered that today was the day my sister was being released from prison. At that time, I didn't suspect that the words in my dream were about to come true. The day she was released, the snow was falling heavily. I had just attended a commendation conference for my unit's second-class collective achievement at the women's prison. Snow drifted across the sky like shredded cotton, falling onto her short, graying hair and also onto my police badge. You've gotten old. So have you. The two of us stared at each other, smiled, and then burst into tears. In the summer of 2003, my stepfather strangled me with a wire hanger, nearly choking me to death. My sister arrived to save me, swinging a knife and slashing my stepfather more than 10 times, later being sentenced to life imprisonment for intentional homicide. She was only 19 that year. 20 winters later, her sentence was reduced and she was released. Half of her black hair had turned white. The girl as beautiful as a flower in my memories had been carved by the years into an old woman with white hair. On the way home, she gazed curiously at the elevated trains, the high-rise buildings, the giant advertising screens, and gaped in surprise at the navigation voice of the smart assistant. Perhaps the cruelest thing in the world is getting old before you've had time to understand life. I thought that after half a life of wandering and separation, the dust had settled. Finally, we could live a good life together. But unexpectedly, the wheel of fate had only just begun to turn. A shocking serial robbery was waiting for me. Her name was Hannah. She and I were not related by blood, nor was she a member of my family. We had known each other since childhood. Back then, she was just a helpless orphan, left to fend for herself, coming from the South. We called each other sisters because neither of us had parents, sharing the same plight. We could only draw a little warmth of family from this constructed relationship. She would share half of the steamed buns she bartered for with me, and I would share a bowl of porridge I earned with her. She told me that when she was very young, her parents went to work in a big city and were never heard from again, never returning home. When she first arrived here, her grandmother passed away too. To make a living, she traveled from the distant south to our small northern town to rely on a relative, but received only awkwardness, glares, and reluctant charity. From then on, every bite of food she ate had to be earned with her own hands. As for me, I wasn't much different. Before it happened, my father died of cancer. My mother remarried my stepfather. On the surface, my stepfather pretended to be enthusiastic and generous, deceiving my mother into trusting him, but after marriage, he revealed a savage and brutal face, beating people whenever he got drunk. One day when I was 10, my mother went to the district market to sell eggs as usual. But by evening, she didn't return home as usual. Later, she sent a message through someone saying she wanted to go out and face the world, and no one was allowed to look for her.
Your mom fell for some young guy and ran off with him. She's not coming back.
He vented all his hatred for my mother onto me. From then on, beatings and scoldings became a daily occurrence. Hannah and I first met on a dark December night of the new millennium. I was 12, my face bruised and swollen, my stomach growling with hunger as I ran away from home, wandering in the howling cold wind. She was squatting by the roadside, breathing into her hands, selling baked sweet potatoes she roasted herself. Under her feet lay a worn-out copy of Murder on the Orient Express. The yellow street light shone on her face, flushed red from the cold, reflecting a clear streak of tears. "Why are you crying here?" I stopped curiously and asked. She wiped her tears, shook her head, and said nothing. "You wouldn't happen to be the little match girl, would you?" I teased. She smiled softly. "I don't sell matches, only baked sweet potatoes." I swallowed my saliva and asked, "How much for the baked sweet potatoes?" She looked at me seriously, picked the biggest sweet potato, handed it to me, and said no charge. The two of us sat shoulder to shoulder on the curb, necks shrunken into our collars, leaning against each other, shivering and laughing as we talked for a long time. She stuffed my hands into the pockets of her padded coat. We told each other about our experiences, felt a connection, and decided to become sworn sisters like the heroes in books. From now on, neither of us is an orphan anymore, because I have a younger sister and you have an older sister. Then, a catastrophic disaster struck unexpectedly in the summer of my second year of middle school. At that time, my stepfather had just married a new wife. That woman's name was Victoria, with wavy hair and a strong scent of perfume, bringing along a son in middle school. On the day of their wedding banquet, my stepfather forced me to kneel and call that woman mother. I refused. When the guests left, he used his drunkenness to swing a chair and chase me, beating me while roaring in anger.
Call her mom. If you don't, then get out.
Early the next morning, having been punished by standing outside all night, starving and dizzy, I finally gave in and called her mother just to get a bite of rice. As soon as Victoria stepped out and saw me, she jumped in fright. "Where did this wild brat come from? Who is your mother?" Wearing high heels, she disdainfully pushed me aside as if kicking away something filthy. I had wanted to leave this house and go far away alone for a long time, but I always had a concern in my heart. The old house, though very dilapidated and devoid of love, was the inheritance my grandparents left to my mother. My stepfather marrying my mother was technically him moving in with her. Now that my mother was gone, he and Victoria occupied the magpie's nest. Neither reason nor emotion could justify it. I foolishly waited for my mother to return. I believed she wouldn't abandon me. So, I insisted on staying here like a hateful dog, stubbornly refusing to leave despite being bullied. My stepfather and Victoria, the newlyweds, were inseparable, lovingly fighting and scolding each other every day. Victoria's son instantly became the crown prince of the house, spoiled to the extreme. That boy's name was Victor. He had been held back 2 grades and was a demon of destruction, no more, no less. As soon as he arrived, he took my room, so I could only sleep on a mat in the living room. He tore up my books to use as toilet paper. He broke my 2B pencils, sharpened the wood into shavings, and mixed them into my rice. He took advantage of when I was sleeping to cut my hair into a messy bird's nest. I had loud arguments with him a few times, but it goes without saying who won. Victoria would always heartbrokenly hug her son, crying and accusing me of bullying her little boy. Then my stepfather would slap me, slapping me until I admitted my mistake and apologized. The night before the high school entrance exam, I finished the housework and lay on the straw mat to sleep. Victor invited a few classmates home and deliberately left his door open to play video games. The piercing music shook the sky, and they laughed and joked until 2 a.m. On the day of the exam, I was yawning from sleepiness, but luckily, thanks to my daily accumulation of knowledge, I maintained a stable performance and got into the best high school in the county. Summer vacation, the day the number 1 county high school sent my admission notice, should have been the happiest day of my life. But because my stepfather died a tragic death and my sister was arrested, that day was forever shrouded in a terrifying mist. What happened that night is still vivid before my eyes. At that time, only my stepfather and I were home. I had just taken the admission notice out of the envelope and let out a surprised cheer. My stepfather snatched it, glanced at it, then tore it into shreds and threw them into the air.
What the hell kind of studying is this? Don't mention high school or low school to me. I haven't even finished high school myself, so what makes you think you get to go? You're just a dog I'm raising. It's good enough that I provide you with food and drink. Take a piss and look in the mirror. What kind of student do you think you are? You trash.
I gritted my teeth and lay silently on the ground, picking up the pieces one by one. A dirty slipper kicked provocatively at my head.
Say something, you mute. You're just like your mother. Ambition higher than the sky, but a fate lower than the grass.
My anger finally erupted at that moment. I roared and jumped up to fight back, but only received a brutal beating in return. Outside the window, cicadas buzzed, and the scent of flowers drifted in. Like countless days and nights before, I curled up, enduring the torture without being able to resist. I gradually couldn't breathe, feeling my neck being strangled by a wire until I couldn't escape death. When I opened my eyes again, I saw my stepfather's fat body collapsing onto the floor like a mountain. My sister appeared in front of me. She stood against the light, looking down, holding a blood-stained kitchen knife in her hand. Clang, clang, that sound beat heavily against my eardrums, rhythm by rhythm. My vision turned red. My sister slashed my stepfather more than 10 times. Every strike was fatal, her attacks cruel and merciless. Later, the forensic doctor said he had used a wire hanger to strangle the girl. If he had continued, he would have killed her. The town clinic doctor said the same, only no one cared. In that era, the legitimate defense system stipulated in Article 20 of the Penal Code was still rarely applied in judicial practice. The traditional concept of a life for a life and the dead are the greatest turned her into a bloodthirsty female demon in everyone's eyes. On the night of the crime, my sister had intended to come find me to play. The two of us had a date to go to the night market. She arrived on time as usual, knocked on my window, and upon receiving no response, peered inside. She saw my stepfather beating me and, in a moment of urgency, pushed open the screen door, climbed through the window, and jumped into my house. My sister confessed that he deserved to die. Facing rounds of interrogation, she stiffened her neck and refused to plead guilty. I was not wrong. He was the sinner. Hannah, the police officer shouted sternly. Is killing someone something to be proud of? That was a human life. That was your best friend's father. Father? Haha. My sister smiled, revealing 2 sharp little canine teeth. Where were you when her father beat her? Where were you when her father touched her? You tell me to call him father? Then I'd rather all fathers in this world die, go extinct. I'll kill them all, hack them all to death. All of them die. Her slender wrists struggled in the rigid handcuffs. Crazy, uncontrollable laughter trembled on her beautiful face. The video recording of the police interrogation served as evidence of my sister's poor attitude in admitting guilt. I couldn't stand seeing him bully you. Half a year later, in the visiting room of the women's prison, my sister's eyes were filled with tears, but she forced a bright smile for me. I'm all grown up, but aren't you still a child? Could I simply not protect you? If he hit you and I said nothing, would I still be human? Tracy, others might not know how you've lived all these years, but wouldn't I know? I closed my eyes, tears falling like rain. Through hard work and saving every bit, my sister had graduated from nursing school. She was supposed to start working as a nurse at the county hospital in the second half of the year. The two of us had planned that once she saved enough money, we would move out and rent a place together. But the accident destroyed all hope. He was killing you, he wouldn't let go, and your face turned pale. My head was buzzing. I didn't know what to think, so I grabbed the kitchen knife and slashed the back of his neck. I was afraid he wasn't dead and would come back to take revenge on you, so I slashed him a few more times. Tracy, I killed him. From now on, you can hold your head high. You don't need to fear anyone anymore. My sister's expression was unconcerned, as if she were talking about the weather. Separated by a layer of iron bars, her pale, haggard face was cut into pieces by the steel wires, appearing slightly twisted and deformed. Sister, you've gotten thinner. Is the food bad? You want roasted sweet potatoes. I'll bring some for you next time. No need to bring them. Sending food isn't allowed here. So wait until I get out, and we'll roast sweet potatoes and eat them together. My sister gave a tragic smile, tears streaming down her cheeks. She wiped her face and spoke again. But you mustn't let anyone bully you anymore. You have to say that my sister will be out of prison in just a few years. That way, no one will dare to bully you. 20 years later, comrade, in the year 2023, snow was filling the sky. I went to the gate of the women's prison to bring my sister home. She asked me, Tracy, are there still baked sweet potatoes in this world? For the past 20 years, my sister was reformed in prison, while I was alone in the sea of people. I went to high school with the help of welfare organizations. After graduating, I entered the police academy to major in criminal investigation. My original intention was very pure. I walked out of the darkness and wanted to walk towards the light. A flower growing in rotting soil craves sunlight more than any other plant. In 13 years as a police officer, I handled thousands of cases, big and small, growing step by step from little Tracy in my colleagues' mouths to Captain Tracy, leading a criminal police team. In 2023, using the most advanced DNA testing technology, our city's major crimes team successfully solved a serial murder case from the end of the last century. The task force was awarded a second-class collective commendation. I was one of the task force members who attended the commendation conference. The day of the conference happened to coincide with the day my sister was released from prison. After the meeting, before I could even take off my police uniform, I rushed to pick up my sister and take her home. Outside the gate of the women's prison, she stood alone waiting for me. Snow drifted across the sky like shredded cotton, falling onto her short, graying hair. My sister stared blankly at me for a long time, as if she didn't dare to recognize me. "You've gotten old." Her hand, wet with snow, tremblingly caressed my cheek. "So have you." I smiled, unable to distinguish whether the cold things on my face were snow or tears. It was the most memorable moment of my life, and also the beginning of a great calamity in my fate. That night, the blizzard howled mournfully. The heater made the room warm. The smell of roasted sweet potatoes wafted from the electric oven. I prepared a table full of delicious food and raised a glass with my sister. As the alcohol kicked in, I couldn't hold back my tears. "Sister, I'm sorry." "Why apologize? I went to prison to save you." "I'm sorry, sister. All these years, whenever I thought about it, Shoo." My sister placed her index finger on her lips. Under the yellow chandelier, her cheeks were flushed and her eyes curved into a smile. "Tracy, I have never blamed you. That was the path I chose myself. That chapter has been turned. Forget it. No one is allowed to mention it ever again. Rest assured, I swear on my life, I will not tell anyone." She straightened her face, raised 3 fingers, and spoke in a very serious tone. "I, Hannah, swear a solemn oath to heaven. I will let it rot in my gut. Heaven knows, earth knows, I know, and you know, if I tell anyone else, may I die without an intact body." I laughed, amused by her posturing. Laughing, then crying again. I lay prone on the table crying for a long time before recovering. A chill rose from the soles of my feet, pushing back the alcohol, and my mind gradually cleared. "It's strange. What is it that isn't allowed to be mentioned anymore? What has to rot in your gut?" "Sister, what do you mean by that? What won't you tell anyone?" "I don't understand. What are you swearing such a solemn oath about?" My sister looked at me with a distant gaze, remaining silent for a long time. Her eyes held 3 parts desolation and 7 parts tolerance, her expression like that of a sorrowful saint. "Never mind, let's not talk about it." She gave a faint smile and said, "How could I let it go so easily? I beg you to explain." My sister, pushed to impatience by me, raised a glass of wine and drank it in one gulp, suddenly blurting it out. "You killed Hugh. You killed him well, you were right to kill him. Because Hugh wasn't human at all." I felt my brain throbbing. Hugh, that was my stepfather's name. I suddenly stood up abruptly. "Sister, what do you mean? I killed Hugh?" "I said you?" She also stood up, eyes widening, asking back, "Wasn't it you?" I felt like a thunderbolt had struck near my ears. "How could it be me? Speak clearly." My sister stood stunned, revealing a bewildered and confused expression, her eyes dreamy as if looking into the distance. A moment later, she spoke with difficulty. "That night I came to find you, knocked on the window, and when no one answered, I looked inside. I saw you and Hugh both collapsed on the floor motionless." Saying this, she lowered her voice very low. "Hugh's head was covered in blood, and you were holding a blood-stained kitchen knife in your hand. Was it not you who killed him?" With a boom, my head exploded. Seeing that scene, I realized something huge had happened and quickly climbed through the window. My sister continued. "Hugh lay face down on the ground motionless, bleeding heavily from the back of his neck. I checked his nose. He was no longer breathing. You were collapsed by the cabinet in the corner, a wire hanger caught around your neck. You were still breathing, just fainted. I knew Hugh had been beating you frequently during that time, and you had been pushed to the brink of collapse. I thought perhaps Hugh had used the wire hanger to strangle you. While struggling to resist, you used the knife to hack him to death, then fainted from the shock, right? My mind was chaotic at that moment. I had only one thought: save you. It was instinct. You're my sister. I have to protect you. You were 14, old enough to go to prison for murder. You're not like me. You study so well. You have a future, you have hope. When you grow up, you'll be a pillar of society. Trading your future for that beast Hugh wasn't worth it at all. At that time, I often borrowed detective novels from the library. I knew the crime scene would leave traces, fingerprints would be on the weapon, and those things would provide clues for the police to solve the case. I took the knife out of your hand, wiped the handle clean, wiped the floor once, and did other things to mislead the police. Then I picked up the kitchen knife and slashed Hugh's neck more than 10 more times. It was like I was possessed by a demon. When I finally reacted, everything was already done. It was too late to regret. I used your home phone to call 110 for the police to come and arrest me. You know everything that happened after that. I took all the blame, fabricating a fake murder case for the police. I still clearly remember her expression in the interrogation video. Laughing maniacally, angrily cursing, swearing viciously. He deserved to die. I was not wrong. I will kill them all. Hack them all to death. Everyone die. She acted like a real killer, portraying madness, loss of control, and extreme cruelty. Criminal investigation techniques 20 years ago were far from as developed as they are today. In our small place, investigation methods were also relatively backward. Based on my sister's rock-solid testimony and the fake evidence at the scene, the conviction was made. In the end, my sister went to prison as she wished. I still remember her tragic smile through the iron bars. Tracy, I killed him. From now on, you can hold your head high. You don't need to fear anyone anymore. She decided she would rot in prison in my place. The role of the killer, once played, lasted 20 years. Over the past 20 years, I visited her in prison every so often. She was afraid our conversations were being eavesdropped on, so she didn't reveal a single word. It wasn't until the night of her release, when the two of us were eating alone at home, that she accidentally revealed the truth under the influence of alcohol. Listening to her story, my inner world was like 10,000 horses galloping. But sister, my whole body trembled, and I could barely utter a sound. I didn't kill Hugh. Hugh wasn't killed by me. He was killing me, and I fainted. When I woke up, I saw you holding the knife slashing him. I always thought it was really you who killed him. My sister looked at me blankly, slowly sliding down to the floor as if all her bones had fallen apart, having no strength left to stand up. I stayed up all night, rethinking thousands of times what happened that summer night. I remembered Hugh beating me ruthlessly. I remembered my neck being strangled by a hard object like a wire. I tried to struggle, and my eyes went dark. I remembered when I opened my eyes again, I saw my stepfather's fat body collapsing onto the floor like a mountain. My sister appeared in front of me. She stood against the light looking down, holding a blood-stained kitchen knife in her hand. Clang, clang, clang. That sound beat heavily against my eardrums, rhythm by rhythm. My vision was red. During that time, I was missing a segment of memory. An extremely important segment of memory. Did I really kill Hugh? In university, I majored in investigation and also studied criminal psychology very carefully. Over the past decade, I have handled thousands of cases and come into contact with countless suspects. After killing someone due to excessive shock, a killer activates a psychological defense mechanism and forgets the process of their killing, thus firmly believing that they are innocent. There are many such cases in textbooks, and I have actually encountered quite a few. Could it really be that I hacked Hugh to death, then fainted from fear and forgot the process of my killing? No, that's impossible. Isn't my sister's word the strongest evidence? That kitchen knife was clearly in my hand. In the dead of night, I carefully took out my police uniform, gazing at it meticulously, stroking it. This uniform has traces of bullets, bloodstains, and has carried medals. It is my life. But life is precious, and the truth is even more valuable. My sister needs to be cleared of the crime that doesn't belong to her. At most, she is guilty of desecrating a corpse and harboring a criminal. The person guilty of intentional homicide might just be me. However, as the east brightened, I gradually calmed down and thought of another possibility that couldn't be ignored. The killer was someone else. That kitchen knife was clearly put into my hand by the real killer, the goal being to frame me. My sister tried to do a good deed, but turned it into a bad one. To save me from guilt, she destroyed the traces at the scene, actually aiding the real killer. If she hadn't carefully cleaned the scene, if she hadn't blindly taken the blame for me, the person convicted and imprisoned would have been the real killer. Who would it be? Who would hate both me and Hugh, wanting to use this two birds with one stone method to eliminate both of us at the same time? A face gradually appeared before my eyes. After Hugh died, there was only one person in the whole world who grieved for him, his wife, Victoria. That year in the morgue, Victoria hugged the blood-soaked body, crying her heart out, gut-wrenching, almost vomiting up her internal organs. No one who heard it could help but shed tears of sympathy. She once stormed into the detention center, crazily declaring she would hack my sister to death to avenge Hugh. She once took advantage of my deep sleep to put a rope around my neck, laughing strangely, saying she would make me be buried with her husband. She washed her face with tears day and night, even threatening suicide. Until one day, a phone call came, and she hurriedly went out to handle some business. When she returned, she carried a buttercream cake and a bucket of fried chicken, and even bought her son a pair of branded sneakers. The next day, mother and son left without saying goodbye, completely disappearing from my life. 20 winters later, I went to a high-end residential area like a fairyland in the suburbs of the city and knocked on Victoria's door. A dozen seconds later, the woman I once called Mother opened the door and appeared before me. Pearl earrings, a new style suit, exquisite curly hair. It was hard to believe a 60-year-old woman could maintain her look so well. Her facial features were hardly ravaged by time, only the arrogance between her eyebrows had disappeared, replaced by the ease of someone living in luxury. "Auntie Victoria, I'm Tracy, long time no see." Adhering to the tradition of respecting the old and loving the young, I put aside past grievances to greet her, handing over a box of fruit. Victoria stared at me like a wooden statue for a long time, unblinking, showing no surprise at all. Instead, she forced a smile full of hidden meaning. "Officer Tracy, you've come." I was invited inside for tea and conversation. In the tea room, a golden toad holding a coin reflected the dim light, and pristine white sleeves fluttered gently with the tea-pouring motion. "Officer Tracy, I saw you on the news yesterday." Victoria spoke faintly, her hands never stopping the tea preparation. "You successfully solved the case, and were commended for second-class achievement." "Really impressive." Who would have thought that the sickly cat-like weak girl from back then would grow up into such a majestic female police captain? "You really have a future, unlike my useless son." "Auntie Victoria." I pulled the conversation back. "I came here today to tell you a story. Would you like to hear it?" "Oh, right. What story?" She looked up at me. "A story about how a woman killed her husband." Tea spilled over the rim of the cup onto the mahogany tea table, but Victoria's hand, wearing a jade ring, remained suspended in midair, motionless. Once upon a time, there was a woman, let's call her Vicky. Vicky had been divorced for many years, raising her son alone, and life was very difficult. In 1998, after losing her job at the textile factory, she could only work odd jobs to scrape by. Life got harder and harder. One freezing winter night, in a neon-lit dance hall, Vicky was singing for tips when she met Hugh, who was socializing with clients. She looked at his expensive suit and was moved. They kissed under the rotating colored lights, making a pact in the Santana parked in the alley. Outside the car window, the last snow of 2002 was slowly falling. Hugh said he also had a previous wife. His ex-wife had died years ago, leaving him a stepchild. He raised the girl without complaint or regret, for no other reason than his kind nature. "If you don't mind, let's build a new family. From now on, as long as I have food, you won't go hungry." Vicky married Hugh hoping to live a good life. But unexpectedly, after marriage, All beautiful dreams were shattered, leaving only ridiculous lies. Hugh's suit was a knockoff, his character was terrible, his job title was fake, and the so-called clients were all bad friends playing roles. He pretended to be a high-class person, lurking in dance halls every night solely to pick up women. He once cried and recounted that he had to sell his luxury villa due to failed investments, humbling himself to hide here, waiting for the day he could rise again. But in reality, he was a gluttonous, lazy loser who drank and gambled day and night. His promises were all hot air. Vicky also learned from the neighbors that Hugh's ex-wife hadn't actually died. She had just run away from home years ago. Then Hugh used the excuse of her disappearance to pull strings and unilaterally process a divorce. That young stepchild became a tool for Hugh to vent his anger. Upon learning the truth, Vicky was disheartened but refused to accept being so blatantly deceived. She secretly came up with a plan that would both exact revenge for Hugh's deception and secure a future for herself and her son. She persuaded Hugh to buy a huge accident insurance policy together, naming each other as beneficiaries. Moved by the insurance agent's sweet words, Hugh signed the contract carelessly, unaware he was digging his own grave. After buying the accident insurance, Vicky began proactively creating accidents. On a summer night with the scent of flowers wafting in, Hugh tore up his stepdaughter's high school admission notice, beat the girl ruthlessly, and then strangled her with a wire hanger until she fainted. Vicky seized the opportunity, grabbed the kitchen knife, and dealt Hugh a fatal blow to the neck. She shoved the bloodied knife into the girl's hand, making that orphan with no father or mother her scapegoat. This two birds with one stone plan was actually very crude. The police and forensics could easily detect loopholes and bring the real killer to justice. But coincidentally, unexpectedly, another girl appeared to change the scene, taking the blame, voluntarily becoming the scapegoat for the scapegoat, and ultimately going to prison as wished. In the morgue, Vicky wept bitterly, vividly portraying a woman suffering from the loss of her husband. No one knew that her falling tears were tears of joy. She wore mourning bands to the insurance company multiple times to negotiate. One second she was crying miserably to the police on the phone, the next she hung up and argued with the insurance agent to haggle. Not long after, the insurance company called to say the compensation had arrived. Vicky went out to complete the final procedures, bought delicious food she normally couldn't bear to buy, closed the door, and celebrated with her son in tears. The next day, she left that nightmare place forever. At that time, SARS had just ended, and the national real estate market was bleak. Vicky went to the provincial capital and bought several small apartments at dirt-cheap prices. Later, as housing prices skyrocketed, her net worth rose with the tide, and selling the accumulated real estate yielded a significant fortune. Vicky today lives in a luxury villa, eating well and dressing well, enjoying family happiness, studying tea ceremonies day and night, practicing Baduanjin, and doing beauty treatments to kill endless free time. The old events of 20 years ago seem like just a big dream. Those dark, tragic, filthy things have all vanished like smoke in the wind, as if they never existed. However, on this very day, a police officer came to visit. That officer was none other than Hugh's stepchild, that sickly cat-like girl from back then. The officer brought news. The scapegoat sentenced to life imprisonment has now been released after a sentence reduction. She told the truth, she never spoke back then. She was not the real killer who killed Hugh. The police have opened a reinvestigation and are about to drag out the real killer who has been hiding for 20 years. How does Vicky feel inside? Is she thinking that the statute of limitations for criminal prosecution has passed and the case might be dismissed? Is it that all evidence has been destroyed and the truth can be buried? Is it that as long as she grits her teeth and denies everything, the police will have no way to charge her? Unfortunately, that's not the case. If they didn't hold enough evidence, if they weren't fully certain, why would the police dare to venture a visit? Auntie Victoria, my story is finished. Victoria looked out at the withered branches outside the window, listening blankly, the corners of her lips always holding an ambiguous smile. Not a bad story at all. She spoke calmly. Where did you hear this story? I compiled it myself based on some materials. Not a bad compilation. I didn't expect Officer Tracy to not only be good at solving cases, but also have good storytelling abilities. She took a sip of tea and suddenly looked up at me. But I have a few suggestions. I don't know if I should say them. Please, go ahead. First, this character Vicky seems to be portrayed as too cruel. Not only plotting for money in life, but also easily framing a girl with whom she had no grievances. This isn't something a woman who is a mother could do. Oh, really? I don't understand the group of people called mothers very well. How about changing it like this? Vicky came home from playing cards and saw Hugh frantically strangling his stepdaughter and refusing to let go. Vicky, wanting to save the girl in a moment of urgency, slashed Hugh once. Oh? Vicky discovered Hugh was dead and panicked. She didn't want to go to prison because her son was still in middle school and couldn't be without a mother. She picked up the knife and put it in the girl's hand. That was also a decision made after a fierce internal struggle. Because the girl was young, at most she would sit in prison for a few years and wouldn't get the death penalty. Vicky thought, I saved the girl's life. The girl helps me sit in prison. Very fair, right? Not entirely unfair. Second, regarding the insurance. Is it possible that the idea of buying huge accident insurance was actually proposed by Hugh himself? He was both poor and greedy, wanting to kill his wife for insurance money, but unexpectedly died first, instead benefiting the wife he deceived. Writing it this way would fit the character and logic better. From start to finish, the smooth-talking manipulator was Hugh, and the fool falling into the trap was Vicky. Don't you think so? Indeed. Why didn't I think of that? There's one last point. Victoria continued. I suggest adding a sentence like this at the end of the story. Vicky had once condoned her son bullying the girl, and for that, she was very regretful. She has tasted the bitter fruit. Under unprincipled indulgence, her son has grown into a weak, useless giant baby. Vicky's life is full of emptiness and suffering. The old events of 20 years ago never passed, but gnaw at her heart like rats every dark night. I understand. I closed my notebook and said, I have noted all your suggestions. I took a piece of paper with my contact information out of my pocket and gave it to her. Auntie Victoria, I won't bother you anymore today. This is my office address. You're welcome to come find me for tea anytime. We can talk deeper. Regarding Vicky's ending, whether she turns herself in, gets taken away by the police with dignity, or ends up tragically, you can think about it. Once you've thought it through, come find me to discuss. Goodbye. Before walking out the door, I turned my head to glance at Victoria. She sat dazedly by the window, back hunched and knees bent, seeming to age 20 years in an instant. Nom, TV, I bet your gun has no bullets. If it fires, I die and you win. If it doesn't fire, you owe me a silver coin. Night fell. I was napping on the sofa, half awake, hearing the movie dialogue echoing in my ears. New, Trong Mo Die, Tracy. My sister shook me. I woke up with a start. 2 of your colleagues came looking for me today. My sister's face was gloomy. Did you report it to the unit? Yes. Tracy, how could you do that? She questioned excitedly. It's a private matter between us sisters. Why did you have to tell others? I swore a solemn oath. If I revealed it to others, I would die without an intact body. Did you forget? Do you want me to die? I'm sorry. I just wanted. They interrogated me for 2 hours in that cold interrogation room. I hate that place the most. I struggled so hard to escape it, yet you caused me to go back there again. Sister, I didn't expect to make you so uncomfortable. I'm truly sorry. I reported the situation to the bureau only to clear your name and bring the real killer to light. Is the real killer that important? Why must they be dragged out? Isn't it true that whoever killed Hugh did a good deed, saving your life? Tracy, have you ever thought about what your life would be like if Hugh were still alive today? Those are 2 different things. Suppose I did kill Hugh, so what? Being innocent or not doesn't mean anything to me now. I've served the time, taken the punishment. What benefit is there in dragging another person into this? It must be your occupational disease. You can't ignore what you know. Even if it turns out the real killer is you, you would admit it. My sister sighed, her face full of disappointment. What did you tell my colleagues? I said I was drunk and forgot everything. Everything was just nonsense spoken while drunk. They couldn't ask anything, so they let me go. All right then. I shrugged indifferently. Tracy, you really are a child who won't grow up. She looked at me earnestly, eyes teary. Some things should stop at the right time. There's no need to reach a dead end. I don't blame you, I only blame myself for talking too much. Let it pass. Don't pursue it anymore. Consider it me begging you, okay? Is my way of doing things really right? Is it pursuing justice or harming others and myself? Late at night, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep, constantly organizing this mess in my heart. Whenever I thought of that bloodstained knife having been in my hand, I couldn't help but force myself to investigate further. Without finding the real killer, how could I explain it to myself? In the unseen world, there seemed to be an invisible force pushing me, pulling me, forcing me to go deeper into the tunnel leading to the truth. Only later did I understand what that force was. Its name was death. But at that time, I was still vague and ignorant about everything that would happen later, only caring about rushing into that tunnel like a stubborn ox, sliding deeper into the abyss step by step. Investigating an old case from 20 years ago presented imaginable difficulties. Not only because evidence was hard to collect, but it also involved the issue of accountability for a wrongful case. The criminal police officer in charge of the Hugh case back then had now been promoted to city bureau leadership. Once this case was determined to be a wrongful criminal case, the leadership would inevitably face accountability and bad influence. Can it be investigated to the end? Is there hope to overturn the case? I didn't have much confidence. That day, I took the initiative to visit Victoria to push the case investigation. Originally, I developed suspicions about Victoria mainly for 3 reasons. First, when a spouse is killed, the partner is often the primary suspect. That is experience drawn from many cases. Second, insurance fraud is a common motive for murder. Victoria received a huge insurance payout from Hugh's death. After she and her son left, neighbors spread many rumors about this. I didn't pay attention back then, but remembering it now really increased my suspicion of her. Third, Victoria's attitude towards me back then was terrible, full of negligence and disdain. Framing me certainly wouldn't have caused her any psychological burden. I had no parents, no adults to back me up. Even if I were wrongly imprisoned, no one would stand up to claim justice for me. Someone like me was indeed a good choice to be pushed to take the blame. Of course, the above 3 reasons were just my speculations, without concrete evidence. I relied on personal connections to find out Victoria's address and current situation, visiting her home as an old acquaintance. In reality, it was nothing short of a big gamble. That half-true, half-false story was my trump card. If she had a clear conscience, she could have laughed it off, or at most angrily kicked me out. The result was I won the bet. Victoria's suggestions for the story, her attitude, and her implied words all raised hope in my heart. If she was really the killer, if she was scared by me into turning herself in, then this case couldn't help but be investigated to the end, and the possibility of overturning the case would increase significantly. However, that hope didn't last long. What happened the next day caused the situation to turn again. The next day, I received both good news and bad news simultaneously. The good news was that Victoria sent a confession letter. In the letter, she detailed the process of hacking Hugh to death, basically matching the content of the story she had edited. The bad news was that Victoria's son called me to say Victoria had taken an overdose of sleeping pills this morning and was being rescued at the hospital. After hurriedly reading the letter, I ran to the hospital. An ominous premonition rose from the bottom of my heart. I vaguely felt something was wrong. Outside the emergency room, a middle-aged man with a listless demeanor was pacing. He looked at me intently for a moment, then quickly stepped forward to ask,
Are you Officer Tracy?
I am Tracy.
Hello, officer. I am Victor.
The man bowed, his attitude respectful and timid.
I saw the phone number you left and presumptuously contacted you, hoping you could help me.
This middle-aged man with greasy hair and a potbelly before my eyes was hard to associate with the bad teenager smoking cigarettes, self-proclaimed demon of destruction Victor in my memory. I wasn't in the mood for small talk and asked hurriedly, How is Annie Victoria?
Still in emergency.
Victor spoke wearily.
My mother swallowed more than half a bottle of sleeping pills, leaving a piece of paper on the table.
He said this and handed me a piece of paper. That paper, which he had been clutching in his palm, was soaked with sweat. On it was a line of elegant handwriting. Little Vic, Mom loves you forever. Victor stared at that line, his lips trembling incessantly. Suddenly, this 30-something man knelt on the ground, pounding the floor like a child crying miserably.
Mom, how could you bear to leave me? Mom, how can I live without you?
I hurriedly comforted him. Stand up first, don't cry anymore. He sobbed.
Officer Tracy, you don't know, my mother committed suicide because of me.
What do you mean? She told you she hacked Hugh to death, right? I made no comment, so Victor continued.
You absolutely must not believe it. Everything she said is false. She didn't kill Hugh. She lied just to protect me.
In the small garden below the hospital.
This story has to start from the night 20 years ago, the night my mom bought me fried chicken.
Victor wiped his nose and tears and began to tell.
Since I was little, I wasn't jealous of others having fathers, only jealous that others could eat fried chicken. Fathers and mothers meant nothing to me. When others got beaten, they only knew how to tell their dads. I usually fought back myself, beating them until their teeth fell out. But fried chicken was different. It smelled so good, but was also very expensive, unaffordable. According to my mom, one bag of fried chicken cost enough to feed the two of us for a week. The day she and Hugh got married, she cried and promised me that we would have a good life later, able to eat fried chicken every day. I believed her, but ended up being deceived. Eat what? We could only eat Hugh's farts. One day, my mom took 10 yuan from Hugh to buy me a bag of fried chicken. Hugh came home drunk and had a fight with my mom over that 10 yuan. You didn't know about this, right? I remember you weren't home at that time. Hugh slapped my mom in the face right in front of me, grabbed her hair, and slammed her against the wall. Blood rushed to my brain. I ran into the kitchen, grabbed the kitchen knife, and aimed straight for Hugh's face to chop. My mom hugged me tight from behind, grabbing my arm, screaming herself hoarse, telling me to put the knife down. Seeing me wielding a knife, Hugh lost his nerve and didn't dare utter a peep. I spat on him and said, "Dare to touch a finger on my mom again, and I'll hack you to death." The next day, that thing happened. Hugh died, hacked to death by someone else. My mom always thought I was the one who hacked Hugh to death. I was young and naive back then, fearing neither heaven nor earth. So later I bragged indiscriminately to some close friends, saying that old dog Hugh was actually killed by me, and even the police couldn't catch me. One friend told my mom. My mom was scared pale and ran home to ask if I had killed someone. She sternly questioned me, asking if I really killed Hugh. I said no, I was just tricking them for fun. But my mom refused to believe it. Then the conversation got worse, and I couldn't explain it clearly. She didn't pursue it anymore, just said not to mention Hugh's name ever again. Many years passed, and I gradually forgot about it too. Until yesterday when you suddenly visited, my mom's mood became very abnormal. At night, she locked herself in her room, secretly writing a letter. I felt she was hiding something, so I bothered her to ask. She said a bunch of strange things, something about the police reinvestigating the Hugh case. It's over, paper can't wrap fire, and so on. She forced me to kneel and pressed me again. Did you kill Hugh? Of course, I didn't admit it. She kept dwelling on it. Hugh this, Hugh that. I talked until my mouth was dry, but she wouldn't understand no matter what. Later, I just slammed the door and went back to my room to sleep. Early this morning, I found my mom lying in bed, unable to be woken. Only then did I understand the severity of the problem. Now reflecting on her words, I finally understand. The Hugh case is about to be overturned, right? She is afraid the police will arrest me. I understand my mom best. She can't bear for me to suffer even a little bit. She wouldn't let me go to prison. My mom wrote you a letter lying that she hacked Hugh to death, then took pills to commit suicide, wanting to create a death without evidence, creating a facade of suicide out of fear of punishment. Right, Officer Tracy? Did I analyze it correctly? Is that what's happening?
Victor's face was pale as he spoke tremblingly.
Officer Tracy, I beg you to help me. I don't know what to do now. For the sake of our old friendship, help me think about how to handle this.
Let's put it this way. Come with me to make a formal statement. I will send someone to monitor your aunt's side.
Hey, what are you doing? Don't touch me.
Victor shrank his neck and hurriedly backed away.
I didn't kill anyone. You wouldn't think he was killed by me, would you?
I said whether you killed him or not, the police will naturally investigate clearly. Unexpectedly, with a thud, he suddenly knelt down in front of me.
Officer Tracy.
He screamed in an almost resentful voice.
When we were young, I bullied you. I was wrong. I did terrible things to you. I apologize to you. I kowtowed to apologize to you.
As he spoke, his head banged against the ground.
Officer, but please don't wrong me. I didn't kill anyone. I didn't hack Hugh. I swear on my head to you. I swear I never touched even a hair on Hugh.
Events developing to this point exceeded my expectations. Who lied? Who actually hacked Hugh to death? All clues showed that the case of Hugh's murder indeed had major problems, not ruling out the possibility of a wrongful conviction. According to relevant legal regulations, a reinvestigation case must be opened. Because I had a conflict of interest in this case, due to the recusal principle, I was excluded from the investigation work. But most colleagues in the investigation team had very good relationships with me, so it was inevitable that some rumors flew into my ears. Later, I heard that after Victoria was rescued and out of danger, she was interrogated upon waking up. Facing the detailed professional questioning of the investigators, she resisted stubbornly for a long time, insisting that she was the killer who hacked Hugh to death. But her testimony was contradictory and full of loopholes. The details couldn't withstand scrutiny at all. Finally, she had to give in, admitting that the content of the suicide letter was actually fabricated by her. She declared what she saw and heard on the night Hugh died. Roughly, she said this: I came home after playing cards and found Hugh killed by a single slash, a blood-stained kitchen knife lying on the floor. My first feeling was that my son had caused trouble. I speculated that my son saw Hugh beating Tracy as soon as he entered the door, mistook it for beating me, and rushed up to hack Hugh to death. I picked up the knife and put it in Tracy's hand, hoping Tracy would take the blame for little Vic. This method was very selfish and very stupid, but came entirely from a mother's instinct. Then I sat downstairs trembling, feeling very anxious and regretful. The more I thought about it, the more I felt such a childish framing method couldn't fool the police. Just then, I saw a girl walking towards the building from a distance. I knew that girl's name was Hannah. She was Tracy's best friend and often came to ask Tracy to play. Hannah held onto the windowsill looking inside, then suddenly pushed the screen door and jumped in. Later, the police handling the case said Hannah had confessed everything. She claimed she saw Hugh strangling Tracy from outside the window, climbed in, slashed Hugh to death with more than a dozen cuts, and sat by the body to call the police to turn herself in. I knew Hannah lied. She saw the kitchen knife in Tracy's hand, mistook that Tracy had hacked Hugh to death, so she proactively stood up to take the blame for her best friend. I buried this secret deep in my heart and never told anyone. After the sentencing, I asked my son if he hacked Hugh to death. He denied it to the death. I didn't believe his words. This child is a habitual liar. Not a word of truth has ever come out of his mouth, just like the story of the boy who cried wolf. He lied too much, so I wouldn't trust him anymore. All these years, this matter has always been a knot in my heart. Tracy came to find me 2 days ago implying she wanted to overturn the case. I thought, the police nowadays are no joke. This matter definitely won't escape. I also understand it wasn't necessarily little Vic who did it, but what if? What if he really did it? I can't gamble. I can't gamble with little Vic's life. Once the bet is lost, everything will truly be ruined. Little Vic is ignorant, but am I ignorant too? I am his mother. Besides me, who else can save him? I listened to Tracy saying the police temporarily didn't suspect little Vic but were suspecting me instead. So I went with the flow and took all the blame on myself. At night, thinking it over and over, I felt it was safer to write a suicide letter. That is a mother's instinct. Officer, do you have children? If you have children, you will understand my feelings. I have lived for 60 years with little Vic as my only relative. I divorced early. My son was raised by my own hands since childhood. I raised him until he was 35. He is all my assets in life. If anything happens to him, I might as well be dead. I know this thought is ridiculous, but I can't control myself. This is probably retribution for the sins I committed in a past life. Saying this, Victoria was already bathed in tears. The colleague in charge of the interrogation was old Lee, a comrade who had fought side by side with me for 10 years. After hearing this, he asked a question. When you put the kitchen knife in Tracy's hand, did you ever think that Tracy is also someone else's child? You keep saying mother's instinct. Is that something a mother could do? Victoria gave a tragic smile. No, Wang Guiha, I told her that wasn't something a mother could do. I was terrible. I deceived her. In reality, it's the opposite. That is something only a mother could do. Later, when old Lee and I were eating together, he recounted Victoria's words to me. I smiled bitterly inside. Regarding the group of people called mothers, I obviously still didn't understand very deeply. Old Lee, what exactly is a mother's instinct? Lao Lai, he said maybe you'll understand when you become a mother. I said I would never become a mother in my whole life, because having children requires responsibility. Examining my conscience regarding my attitude towards work, I couldn't be responsible for a child's growth, so I would rather children not come into this world to suffer. Children are people, living people, not a dog or a bag of trash. Some people want to die, so they die, want to leave, so they leave. Leaving children lonely in this world, what kind of parents count as that? Victor was taken to the bureau to make a statement. He insisted on declaring his innocence. He narrated that on the night he was murdered, he was playing games at a private internet cafe in the neighborhood and came home very late. Only after returning home did he know Hugh had been hacked to death. This situation was very hard to verify. After all, more than 20 years had passed since the crime, and witnesses and physical evidence could no longer be found. I originally had a hypothesis that I was the one who hacked Hugh to death and forgot the killing process. The investigation team also considered this possibility. I also made a statement as a person involved in the case and was investigated. But following this direction was also very difficult to investigate further. The reason was the same as above, lack of evidence. In the absence of evidence, essentially no one could be convicted. Just when the investigation work fell into a deadlock, the technical department achieved a major breakthrough. Technicians stayed up 2 nights in a row checking every weapon, blood-stained clothing, and other remaining evidence in the Hugh case, sending them for DNA appraisal and reviewing several surveillance videos stored in the evidence warehouse. That night, sleeping groggily at home, I was woken by the phone ringing. The call was from colleague Old Lee. His voice was very excited. Lao Lai, hurry to the unit. There's an important discovery. I was very puzzled. I'm not in charge of investigating this case. Even if there is an important discovery, why notify me? Very quickly, I understood that this discovery was closely related to me. A few days later, sunset dyed the sky gold, orioles and swallows flew over green grass. In a small border town at low latitude, New Year hadn't arrived, but spring couldn't wait to rush in. In a small, dilapidated brick house in the countryside, bursts of the fragrance of meat filling wafted out. An old, hunched woman was standing by the window rolling dumpling wrappers. On the mottled wall inside the house was pasted a small, faded group photo. In the photo was a lush green lawn, a young man holding a 4-year-old girl, 2 faces affectionately pressed together. The man had a pale complexion, delicate features, and a gentle smile like April in the mortal world. The girl wore a white dress, hugging a small stuffed rabbit, smiling innocently. Click, clack, click. The sound of the rolling pin hitting the cutting board created a hurried rhythm. The thin, hunched back in front of the stove shook gently with that sound. I knocked on the half-open door and walked in, seeing exactly that scene. Linda wiped her hands on her apron, turned around, and looked at me with suspicious eyes. That was a face full of wrinkles, aged by the ravages of wind and frost. "Who are you looking for?" she asked softly. I just called out, "Mom." Separated for 25 years, I had gathered thousands of questions to ask Linda. Why did you leave? Why did you abandon me? Where have you been all these years? Are you living well? Do you have other children? Do you miss me? Or do you still remember me? But now there was only choking silence, tears streaming down in thousands of lines. Some questions have answers without needing to be asked. The young man in the photo was my biological father who died early from illness. The girl he held was me. That photo was the only group photo of us, father and daughter. When I was little, it was always kept in my mother's wallet. After my mother remarried, the photo disappeared. I thought it was lost long ago. I didn't expect to see it here. I looked around the dilapidated house before my eyes. Gray cement floor, rusty table, rotten chair, old-style TV, lonely wooden bed, pitiful floral mosquito net, and on the headboard, a stuffed bunny doll very similar to my childhood toy. They all seemed to be saying, "Tracy, Mom misses you very much." Steaming dumplings scooped from the basket onto the plate emitted misty white steam. A pair of wooden chopsticks was put into my hand. The TV was showing a spring festival program. The voices were distorted by electric static hiss. A corner of the screen flashed with broken snowflakes. "Tracy, I have so many things I want to tell you, but I don't know where to start." "Mom, just start from the day you left." "Okay." Linda's lips trembled slightly, a hoarse voice bursting from my throat. "That day it got dark very early, and the rain was heavy. I didn't sell much, so I pedaled the tricycle back. When cycling next to the cornfield, someone suddenly jumped onto the tricycle from behind and hugged me tight. He pulled me off the bike, dragged me into the cornfield, and started tearing my pants. I knew him. His name was Tony, a thug. He once wanted to rob my stall and had friction with me, then came to trouble me every few days. I struggled with him. He took a small knife from his pocket and slashed my arm. I grabbed the knife and took the opportunity to strangle him. Because I used too much force, I accidentally killed him. I pedaled the tricycle and threw the body into the river under the cliff. Then I ran away immediately. At the bus station, I met an acquaintance. I asked her to pass a message to you all that I was going elsewhere to start a business, telling you not to look for me. I thought that way you wouldn't call the police. I was extremely reluctant to leave you, Tracy. But a mother who is a murderer would only be a burden to you. It was better not to see you." Linda's withered, firewood-like hands covered her tear-streaked face. The sound lingering with crying tones still echoed in my ears. Those curse-like words were like a rope tightening around my neck, round after round, tighter and tighter. I felt cold all over, breathing rapidly. I asked her, "Is that true?" She said it was true. At this moment, a line from a skit sounded on the TV, as if it were a mockery of fate. One person doing a thing is one thing, two people is another thing. "Mom, you came back home one more time later, right?" She looked up with teary eyes and nodded slightly. "Was it in 2003? On a July night?" "Yes." She nodded again. My heart beat faster, holding my breath to listen to her continue. "Tracy, do you know how much I missed you? I missed you when eating, missed you when drinking water, missed you so much I stayed awake all night. I missed you until my head hurt, my heart hurt, my whole body hurt. If I kept missing you like that, I would die." At that time, I had been away from home for 5 years, figuring you were already in middle school. I hid for 5 years and the police didn't find me, so I thought maybe it was safe and took the risk to come back to find you. I wanted to take you away, take you here to live together. Here, you can see flowers in all 4 seasons. I wanted to cook for you every day, take you to and from school, support you through college, and drink wine at your wedding. But she paused for a long time. My heart seemed to stop beating along with her. The air was quiet to the point of almost freezing. She continued, "But I killed someone again. That cowardly dog Hugh dared to treat you like that." I didn't think much, nor did I waste words on him. I just grabbed the knife and hacked him to death. Killing the first person is very hard, but killing the second is much easier. It's a capital crime anyway, why not kill one more? Then I ran away immediately. Linda chuckled, revealing uneven teeth, 2 lines of murky tears flowing down her wrinkled face. The sun set, the night opening its wide mouth to swallow. Linda pulled the light cord. Warm yellow light poured from the bulb, chasing away the darkness in the house. I remembered countless nights in my childhood when my mother and I sat under such a light. She fanned me, taught me to write, watched me draw, and gently told me stories. "Tracy, I left you without a word. I was truly too selfish. Do you blame me? Mom, I don't blame you. Tracy, how did you find me? Linda held my hand tight, placing my hand on her knee and gently rubbing it. Her hand was very rough, very warm. Mom, I have many friends. They helped me look. It was very difficult to find your whereabouts. Oh, you have many friends. That's great, that's great. Linda smiled radiantly, eyes red. She asked, "What job do you do now?" Civil servant. Oh, civil servant. That's great, that's great, that's great. My Tracy is so capable. Mom, let's eat quickly. The dumplings are getting cold. All right. Eat quickly, eat quickly. It's fennel filling. You've liked fennel filling since you were little, right? Do you still like it now? Yes. The two of us bowed our heads and ate without another word. The family in the skit was welcoming a happy reunion comedy ending. Parents, from now on our family will live well together. No one is allowed to mention separation. Cheerful background music played, creating a warm, happy festival atmosphere. I devoured the dumplings, tears falling drop by drop into the vinegar dish. Swallowing the last bite, I hesitated, reluctant to put down my chopsticks. Tracy, don't leave tonight. Wait a moment. I'll go to the village entrance to buy some snacks for you. Then I'll come back and make the bed for you. I still have so much to tell you. Linda stood up to clear the dishes as she spoke. I stood up abruptly, grabbing her arm with one hand. Wait a moment. She looked at me blankly. My knees went weak and I collapsed to the ground, an uncontrollable cry bursting from my throat, screaming with all my strength. Mom, I'm sorry. The chopsticks fell to the ground. In an instant, the main door was pushed open. More than 10 colleagues filed in, standing in a circle, blocking the entrance and windows. Memory flows backward. A few nights ago, after receiving the urgent call from Old Lee, I immediately ran to the unit. Shocking news was waiting for me. Old Lee told me. Nam, Lao Lai several trace biological samples were obtained from the weapon used to hack Hugh to death. After DNA analysis, one sample had a huge problem. Simply put, there was a piece of skin in the crevice of the kitchen knife handle. It belongs to your biological mother. Impossible. I exclaimed in astonishment. Hugh died in 2003, but my mother left home in 1998. That kitchen knife was bought new a few months before Hugh died. How could there be a piece of my mother's skin? Old Lee pulled me to the computer screen, opened a video, and said, Nam, Lao Lai watched this too. It was surveillance footage at the gate of the residential area at the time the crime occurred, evidence stored from 2003 to the present. Under fast-forward mode, the people of 20 years ago moved quickly on the screen. A few minutes later, 19-year-old Hannah appeared. She had a ponytail, holding a popsicle, walking lightly into the residential area, completely unaware of the disaster waiting for her ahead. Nam, Lao, I see it? I see it. What's wrong? Oh, I'm not asking you to look at your sister. He impatiently dragged the progress bar back to the beginning, pointing at a figure in black walking out of the residential area at the edge of the screen and asking, Nam, Lao Lai, is that your mother? Old Lee is a facial recognition genius, known in the team as Fiery Eyes once in a century. I once showed him an old photo of my mother. I didn't expect him to remember it forever after just one look. I stared at the short-haired woman wearing sunglasses, with the sun hat brim pulled very low on the screen. I had to admit that the characteristics of the lower half of her face indeed bore some resemblance to the mother in my distant memory. Her posture was calm, her pace moderate, blending into the crowd without standing out, and she quickly exited the camera range and didn't appear again. My mother had disappeared for 25 years. I couldn't inquire about her whereabouts. In my country, any person over 18 with full capacity for civil conduct has the freedom of movement. She has the right to cut off contact with anyone and the right to protect her privacy. Unless there is evidence that she was harmed, the police will not open a case to find a person. Broadly speaking, even if a person is registered as missing, given limited police resources, finding that person faces countless difficulties. But if that person is suspected of murder, it is a different matter. Hunting down a fugitive and finding a missing person are totally different levels. Before the widespread Skynet surveillance system and big data tracking technology, no suspect can sleep soundly while at large. In that hunt for Linda, I was a special soldier. The investigation team leader was our captain, also the master who had mentored me for 13 years. Considering human feelings, Master arranged a reunion for me and my biological mother, from whom I had been separated for 25 years. Nam, Sufu, I can give you a meal. Just one meal. When you put down your chopsticks, I will order the arrest. Understood? Understood. Can you trust me? Nam, Sufu, yes. I nodded vigorously, turned, and walked towards the small brick house emitting the smell of fragrant meat filling, towards my mother, towards the last meal for us mother and daughter, and also towards the end of the dark tunnel. When we held chopsticks, I was her daughter, she was my mother. From the moment the chopsticks fell to the ground, I became a police officer, and she became a suspect. The reunion became a farewell. When I went to meet Linda with the mission, I completely didn't expect her to carry another human life on her. Tony died in 1998. That year I was 10, not long after my mother left home. By a desolate river on the outskirts of town, the police recovered a body. Based on physical characteristics and clothing, the deceased was identified as Tony, a single man from Tunjia village. No surveillance cameras, no witnesses. The scene washed away by continuous rain, evidence completely destroyed. That was right at the time when a large number of unemployed workers were seeking reemployment. Many people left town to find other livelihoods, and many flocked in to find work. The large flow of moving people increased the difficulty of investigating the case. The Tony case was hard to solve and eventually became a cold case, but hope for solving it was never cut off. The police discovered a small amount of bloodstains on Tony's clothes. Analysis suggested it was the opponent's bloodshed during a struggle. Due to technical limitations back then, DNA testing couldn't be done, but this bloodstained clothing was always carefully preserved in the evidence room. From 2010 to the present, our city has comprehensively implemented the construction of a DNA database of law violators and criminals and a DNA database of crime scenes. The bloodstain evidence in the Tony case was sent for testing and entered into the DNA database of public security agencies nationwide. During the investigation of the Hugh case, the police took biological samples from the weapon for DNA testing. Besides comparing with involved persons, they also compared with the database. The results immediately showed that not only was there a biological mother-daughter relationship with me, but it also matched the DNA evidence in the case of Tony's murder in 1998. Although more than 20 years have passed since the crime, criminal liability will not be reduced or exempted due to the passage of time. According to the 1997 Criminal Law of the People's Republic of China, when the People's Procuratorate, public security organs, or national security organs open a file for investigation or the People's Court accepts a case, if the suspect flees to avoid investigation or trial, they will not be limited by the statute of limitations for prosecution. Linda was prosecuted for suspicion of murdering Tony and Hugh. The trial process was a protracted war. I ran around helping Linda find an experienced criminal lawyer for defense. According to Linda's testimony, in the Tony case, she was attacked from behind and sexually harassed by Tony, accidentally killing him during resistance. In the Hugh case, she killed Hugh with a single slash to save her biological daughter who was being beaten. In today's increasingly perfect rule of law society, Article 20 of the criminal law has been awakened from sleep. For acts of assault, homicide, robbery, rape, kidnapping, or other violent crimes that seriously endanger personal safety, if a defensive act causes casualties to the perpetrator of the illegal danger, it does not constitute excessive defense and does not bear criminal responsibility. I believed that as long as I tried my best, Mom still had hope for freedom. As a police officer, I personally arrested her. As a daughter, I would personally bring her out. While waiting for the trial, due to busy work and exhaustion, my body and mind were on the verge of collapse. After several panic attacks, I went to the hospital for a checkup and discovered I had severe anxiety disorder. After a week of severe insomnia, I fainted at work due to being too haggard and had to take leave for Medical treatment. At that time, it happened that a nearby psychiatric hospital applied a new hypnotherapy method. It was said to be very effective for insomnia and anxiety disorders. The principle is to explore the inner world under the guidance of a hypnotherapist in a state between waking and sleeping, find the pain in the subconscious, thereby releasing the pain and reconciling with oneself. With a try-and-see attitude, I registered for treatment, but unexpectedly, it unveiled the most painful old scar, burying all my dreams and beliefs. Under a yellow light, scraps of paper flew like snow. A middle-aged man raised his hand and slapped down, a stinging slap. Nam, cha duong, kai you see, I haven't even finished high school, so what makes you think you get to go? You're just a dog I'm raising. What kind of student are you trash? Say something, mute. You are not allowed to curse my mother. Suffocating darkness, sinking deep into a bottomless sea. Ding-ling-clack, the sound of a key opening the door. Click. The door closes. A woman wearing a hat and glasses ran over. The man let go of the wire hanger he was holding, turning his head to look. Air rushed back into my lungs. Vision swayed from the living room to the kitchen, and then quickly back, like footage from a handheld camera while running. Nam, cha duong, kai you see die. The back of his neck was beautiful, like a crimson peony in full bloom. New, Tracy, memory Tracy. Mom, you're back, Tracy. The world turned from light to dark. In the chaotic darkness, I sat helplessly on the ground, the world spinning. I vaguely felt the woman kneel down, use her trembling hand to pry something out from between my fingers, rub it hard with both hands, then throw it on the floor next to me. It was a blood-stained kitchen knife. The world turned from dark to light. A strange face appeared before my eyes. The hypnotherapist frowned, speaking to me with a concerned voice, but I couldn't hear a word clearly. I pushed her hand away and ran out headlong. Standing under the scorching early autumn sun, I suddenly remembered this was the 10th hypnotherapy session I had undergone. Today is May 12, 2024. More than half a year has passed since my mother was arrested. Just last month, before the first instance trial opened, Linda suffered a sudden myocardial infarction in the detention center. After failed resuscitation, she died. According to legal regulations, if a suspect dies during the trial stage, the trial will be suspended. Nam, Su Fu, oh really? In the office, Master lowered his head writing documents, not even lifting his eyelids. Nam, Su Fu, where is the evidence? A cold question left me speechless. Nam, Su Fu, without evidence, what's the use of saying these things? Hypnosis? He smirked contemptuously. Nam, Su Fu, do you believe that? Isn't it just quack doctors implanting false memories in you? I don't believe in that stuff. All right then. He put down his pen, looked up at me with kind but sharp eyes, smiled, and said to me, Nam, Su Fu, I know a very good psychiatrist. My uncle's insomnia was cured by him. This weekend, I'll take you for a checkup. Little Tracy. He stood up and patted my shoulder. Nam, Su Fu, your mother's situation has dealt a huge blow to you. I understand, I'm also very sad, but I still hope you can pull yourself together soon. Everyone is waiting for you to come back. Cases are piling up like a mountain, and you are the pillar of our team. I can't do without you. Master, actually, I want to give this to you. I held up a resignation letter with both hands. Nam, Su Fu, get out. Master glanced at it and immediately tore the resignation letter in half. It's up to you, Master. I've submitted it anyway. I tried to keep my tone firm. I'm leaving. Goodbye. I bowed deeply, turned around, and walked away quickly, without looking back.